Welcome to another deep dive. This time we're taking a microscopic adventure, into the world of thyroid cytopathology. Sounds a bit intimidating, I know, but trust me, it's fascinating. And thankfully, we've got an expert here to kind of break it all down for us. We're working with an excerpt from the Atlas of Thyroid Cytopathology.
Absolutely. And we'll be focusing specifically on what we can learn from fine needle aspiration biopsies, often called FNAs, of thyroid nodules. These biopsies help determine whether a nodule might need to be surgically removed.
Okay, so it's like a sneak peek inside the thyroid to see if anything suspicious is going on, kind of like being a cellular detective, but instead of a magnifying glass, we've got a microscope, right?
Exactly.
So one of the first things that jumps out in this atlas is the discussion of follicular lesions, which honestly sounds a little bit mysterious. What exactly are we talking about here?
Well, follicular lesions essentially describe the patterns that we see in the arrangement and structure of thyroid cells. So you can imagine the thyroid gland as a city, and the follicles are like the neighborhoods where the thyroid cells live and work.
Gotcha.
And just like neighborhoods, follicular lesions can have different vibes, which give us clues about the health of the thyroid.
Oh, I like that. I like that analogy a lot. So what are some of the different neighborhoods we might find in this microscopic city?
Well, one type is what we call macrofollicular lesions. Think of these as the quiet, well-organized neighborhoods where everything is running pretty smoothly. We see plenty of colloid, that gel-like substance that stores thyroid hormone, and the cells themselves are nicely spaced out, not too crowded.
Okay, sounds peaceful. So if you see this pattern on a biopsy, it's generally a good sign.
In most cases, yes. Macrofollicular patterns are often associated with benign conditions like goiters, which are simply enlargements of the thyroid gland.
Right, right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So what about those maybe a little bit more chaotic neighborhoods? What might those look like?
You're talking about what we call microfollicular lesions. Now, these are the bustling, densely packed areas of our little thyroid city. The cells are much closer together, often forming these tiny circular patterns called rosettes, and there's not as much colloid around.
Okay, so if macrofollicular lesions are like a quiet suburb, these microfollicular ones are more like a downtown area.
Exactly. But here's the catch. While bustling downtown areas can be perfectly normal, they can also be a sign of trouble brewing. You see, microfollicular patterns can be seen in both benign and malignant conditions, so it's not quite as clear cut.
Hmm, interesting. So how do doctors know whether these downtown areas are a cause for concern or not?
That's where the real detective work comes in. They have to look at other features of the cells, like their size and shape, and the presence or absence of certain markers. They might also order additional tests just to get a clearer picture.
It's amazing how much information they can get from these tiny, tiny samples. Um, Now, I know you mentioned earlier that sometimes certain types of cells kind of stand out, right? Like those bodybuilders you were talking about, the Hürthle cells. Could you tell us a bit more about those?
Sure. So Hürthle cells are fascinating. They are significantly larger than typical thyroid cells, with an abundance of cytoplasm. That's the stuff that fills the cell outside the nucleus. And they're actually named after a German pathologist, Karl Hürthle, who first described them in the late 1800s.
Wow, talk about leaving your mark on the scientific world. That's pretty amazing. So finding these Hürthle cells is like spotting a power lifter in a crowd of regular folks.
Exactly. Their presence can signal a condition called a Hürthle cell adenoma, which is usually benign, but just like those microfollicular lesions, they can sometimes be associated with malignant conditions as well.
So once again, it's all about context and further investigation. This is getting really interesting. Now we've talked about the different ways that thyroid cells can arrange themselves, but what happens when outside forces come into play? I'm thinking specifically about a Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which the atlas mentions.
Right. Well, Hashimoto's thyroiditis is a fascinating, though concerning example of what happens when the body's own immune system goes awry. In this case, your immune system mistakenly identifies your thyroid gland as a threat and basically launches an attack.
Of like a cellular civil war. So how does that play out at the microscopic level?
Well, imagine a battlefield littered with soldiers and casualties. On a biopsy, you might see an abundance of lymphocytes, which are those white blood cells involved in immune responses, swarming around damaged thyroid follicles, little factories that produce thyroid hormones.
Wow, it's incredible. And a little scary how our own bodies can turn against us like that. But I guess being able to identify Hashimoto's through an FNA helps get people the right treatment. Speaking of threats to the thyroid, I think we have to address the elephant in the room, which is cancer. So, what are some of the telltale signs that pathologists look for when they're analyzing these biopsies?
That's a great point. The atlas focuses on two main types of thyroid cancer, papillary and medullary. Now, papillary cancer is the most common type, and fortunately, it tends to be very treatable.
Okay, that's good to hear. So, what makes papillary cancer cells stand out under the microscope? What are they doing that's different?
Picture this. The nuclei of these cells, which house their DNA, have these distinctive grooves and indentations, almost like a fingerprint. It's one of the key features that sets them apart from normal thyroid cells.
So they're literally leaving their mark. Are there any other clues that pathologists look for?
Absolutely. In papillary cancer, we often see this unusual sticky colloid that clings to the cells instead of spreading out evenly like we see in benign conditions. It's another red flag that something might be amiss.
Interesting. So it's not just about the cells themselves, but also how they interact with their surroundings. Are there any other unique features of papillary cancer that we should know about?
Yes, sometimes we see these tiny calcium deposits called samoma bodies. They're like miniature time capsules that form within the tumor. Now, the exact reason they form in papillary cancer is still a bit of a mystery, but their presence is a pretty strong indicator.
So ensampler bodies are like the hidden treasure for these cellular detectives.
Precisely. They're not always present, but when they are, they're a valuable clue. Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about medullary thyroid cancer. It's less common, but still important to understand.
Okay, bring on the knowledge. What makes medullary cancer different from papillary cancer?
Well, medullary cancer originates from a different type of cell in the thyroid called C cells. These cells are responsible for producing calcitonin, which is a hormone that plays a key role in regulating calcium levels in the body.
Right, calcitonin. I remember learning about that in biology class.
Hmm.
So how do these C cells transform into cancerous cells?
Well, that's a question that researchers are still working to fully understand. But what we can see under the microscope is that medullary cancer cells have a very distinct appearance. Instead of being round or cube-shaped like typical thyroid cells, they're often spindle-shaped, kind of like tiny little footballs.
Oh, so they're a bit rebellious, breaking the mold of the typical thyroid cell. Does that make them easier to spot?
In some ways, yes, but they can also be tricky to identify because they tend to scatter on the slide rather than clumping together neatly. That's why we often use a special staining technique called immunocytochemistry to look for calcitonin in these cells. If we find it, it's a pretty strong confirmation that we're dealing with medullary cancer.
It's like they're trying to hide in plain sight, but the calcitonin gives them away.
Exactly. It's all about using the right tools and techniques to uncover the truth hidden within these tiny samples.
This is all so fascinating. I mean, we've covered so much ground already, from quiet suburbs to bustling downtown, cellular powerlifters, microscopic battlefields, and even a bit of cellular hide and seek. It's clear that there's a whole world of activity happening within our thyroid glands. It really is mind blowing to think about all this cellular activity going on inside us, and most of the time we don't even realize it. So it makes me wonder what's the process like once a pathologist examines a biopsy. I mean, how do they use all of these clues to actually make a diagnosis?
Well, it's a little bit like putting together a complex puzzle. They're not just looking at individual cells in isolation, they're considering the overall cellular landscape. So the arrangement of the cells, their size and shape, the presence or absence of certain features. They're basically piecing together a story based on all the clues they gather.
So it's like a combination of scientific analysis and a bit of detective intuition almost.
Exactly, and that's why experience and expertise are so crucial in this field. A skilled pathologist can look at a biopsy and see patterns and nuances that might not be obvious to an untrained eye.
It sounds like a highly specialized skill. So
Yeah.
once a pathologist arrives at a diagnosis, what happens next? How does that information guide treatment decisions?
Well, it really depends on the specific diagnosis. If the biopsy suggests a benign condition, like a simple goiter or a non-cancerous nodule, the patient might just need regular monitoring to make sure things don't change.
There's no need for drastic measures if the cells are just, kind of going about their business.
Right. But if there are signs of cancer, further testing and treatment will likely be needed. And the type and extent of treatment will depend on a number of factors like the stage of the cancer, its aggressiveness, and the patient's overall health.
Okay, so it's all about getting the right information to make those informed decisions about the best course of action.
Yeah.
And FNAs play a vital role in that process.
Absolutely. They provide a window into the inner workings of the thyroid, allowing doctors to detect problems early on and tailor treatment accordingly. Early detection is often key to better outcomes.
As we're talking about all this, I can't help but think about, those of us listening. We've talked about how FNAs can help diagnose thyroid conditions, including cancer. But is there anything people can do to kind of lower their risk of developing these problems in the first place?
That's a great question, and it's one that many people ask. Unfortunately, there's no guaranteed way to prevent all types of thyroid cancer. Some risk factors like genetics and exposure to radiation are simply beyond our control.
Okay, so some things are out of our hands. But
Right.
what about lifestyle factors? Can things like diet or exercise play a role?
There's some evidence suggesting that a healthy diet, rich in fruits, vegetables, and antioxidants, might have a protective effect against thyroid cancer. And maintaining a healthy weight is generally beneficial for overall health, including thyroid health.
So while there's no magic bullet, making healthy choices certainly can't hurt, right? Of course, if you have any concerns about your thyroid health, it's always best to talk to your doctor.
I couldn't agree more. Regular checkups and open communication with your healthcare provider are essential for maintaining good thyroid health.
This deep dive has been so insightful. We've covered so much ground, from the basic anatomy of thyroid cells to the complexities of diagnosing and treating different conditions. It's really remarkable how much we can learn from just a tiny sample of cells.
It really is. And I think what continues to amaze me is the sheer resilience of the thyroid, even when faced with challenges like autoimmune attacks or cancer. It often finds a way to keep functioning, though sometimes with a little help from medication.
It's like a tiny warrior, battling to maintain balance within the body.
Exactly. And that resilience, I believe, is something to be admired.
Well said.
Yeah.
Thinking about the thyroid's role in the body, it's clear that it impacts much more than just our neck area. Thyroid hormones influence so many different systems, from our metabolism to our mood.
It's definitely something to pay attention to. Thyroid hormones do play a role in regulating our energy levels, our sleep patterns, and even our emotional responses. So it's not surprising that thyroid imbalances can sometimes manifest as mood changes.
It's a reminder that everything in the body is interconnected. What might seem like an isolated issue can actually have ripple effects throughout various systems.
That's a key takeaway. The body is a complex and interconnected web, and the thyroid is a crucial node in that web.
We've learned so much about the thyroid today, from lazy rivers to mosh pits, cellular bodybuilders to microscopic battlefields. It's been quite a journey. It really is amazing how such a small gland can have such a huge impact on our overall health and well-being.
It really highlights the importance of understanding it and taking care of our thyroids.
Absolutely. Um, before we wrap up this deep dive, I wanted to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the remarkable resilience of the thyroid. It's fascinating to think about its ability to adapt and compensate, even when faced with these challenges.
Yeah, it really is a testament to the body's kind of innate drive to maintain balance. The thyroid can adjust its hormone production in response to various factors like stress, diet, even changes in the environment.
It's like it's constantly fine-tuning itself, trying to keep everything running smoothly.
Precisely. Of course, there are limits to what the thyroid can handle on its own, but its ability to adapt and compensate plays a really crucial role in maintaining that overall health.
I mean, it makes me wonder, are there any Any recent developments or breakthroughs in the field of thyroid research that have particularly excited you?
One area that I find really fascinating is the development of new targeted therapies for thyroid cancer. These therapies are designed to specifically attack cancer cells while leaving healthy cells unharmed.
Yeah.
So it's a really promising approach that could potentially revolutionize how we treat thyroid cancer.
That's incredible. It sounds like there's a lot of hope on the horizon for people facing thyroid challenges.
Absolutely. And not just in the realm of cancer treatment. Researchers are also making strides in understanding the underlying causes of thyroid disorders like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which we talked about earlier. And this knowledge could pave the way for new preventative measures and treatments.
It's inspiring to see how scientific advancements are constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the field of thyroid health.
It really is. And I think it underscores the importance of staying informed and advocating for your own health. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to something as crucial as your thyroid.
Well said. This deep dive has been an incredible journey into the world of thyroid cytopathology.
Yeah.
We've gone from understanding the basic building blocks of thyroid cells to exploring the complexities of different conditions and the latest advancements in treatment. What a whirlwind.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you. I hope this exploration has empowered you with a deeper understanding of your own thyroid health.
Absolutely. And to our listener, we encourage you to continue exploring and asking questions and engaging with your own healthcare providers. Your health is your most valuable asset, so never hesitate to advocate for yourself and seek the information you need to make those informed decisions.
And remember, even though these thyroid cells are tiny, they hold a wealth of information about your overall well-being. And by listening to their stories, we can unlock the secrets to a healthier and more vibrant life.
Beautifully put. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of the thyroid. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.